and this kind of stuff just breaks you.
Yeah.
Especially when it's your child.
Especially when it's your child. Love is love. It's just what it is.
Tell me about your son. What was his name?
My son was Jake Whaley. Jacob Robert Whaley. He was a beautiful soul. Jake, he was trust, he was loyalty, he was friendship. He was laughter, and he was fun. He was a handful, far from a perfect person, but he was mine, and I loved him unconditionally, and he was loved by a lot of friends and family. His funeral, I think we had over 450 people show up in the cold and the snow and waited outside for him that day. And I didn't realize how many lives he touched until he was gone. When you saw all the different walks of life that came through that day and all the people, and you realized what he meant to them, how he touched them, then you realized he was someone special.
Tell me about his childhood.
I think Jake had a pretty good childhood. He was a fun kid. He was happy. Jake's childhood a lot different than mine. I never had a good relationship with my parents. They weren't involved. I really don't have a relationship with them today. Haven't for forever, and I never wanted that for him, right? So I think I worked extra hard to be there. Jake played a lot of sports, did a lot of activities, just was very active, big social circle, a lot of friends. He had a good life, I didn't make great money, but I didn't make bad money. And so he had the better lifestyle, better than most. So, like when these things happen, it doesn't just happen to the broken children, the broken homes, right? But sometimes you just break later in life. And
how did you get introduced to hard drugs?
Jake started when he was in, high school, and, it starts with marijuana, and then it goes to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, right? That gateway, right? And if you ask me, it can start when they're second grade, third grade, even you have a good life, right? But when you pick a friend group, you can be the best parent you want to be, involved, control, but when you're influenced by a group, or you gravitate towards a group, because you're going to find you gravitate towards a group that you can relate to, right? Whether they're broken or they have dysfunction. And again, our home wasn't perfect either, right? I wasn't a perfect father. His mother wasn't a perfect mother. But if I look back on it, he always had a propensity to gravitate more towards guys who were a little on the edge and getting in trouble, right? And you know what then? I have a stepson now with my wife, CJ, and she's got 4 kids. None of them ever been in any trouble, right? And I look at Aaron, the youngest, and perfect kid, straight A student. It just there's these difference in the personalities. And
so, when your son was growing up, when Jacob was growing up, you had mom and dad together in the house?
Yeah, Yeah, we didn't get divorced until Jake was 19. Yeah, 19, 20. So yeah, we were both there.
When do you think the drugs started?
Around 15, started with marijuana, right? And then, kind of progressed from there. Yeah.
Are there any addicts in the family or anything like that?
Yeah, you can go back through family histories, right? And,
That includes alcohol, of course.
yeah, alcohol and drugs. And, I had my issues when I was younger. His mother, which ends up playing a huge part in this story today.
I mean, the fact that there's a drug like fentanyl now plays the biggest role in the story because
That's where it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
Jake died February 14th, 2024. It's fentanyl overdose. And fentanyl is, there's nothing safe out there anymore. Nobody's safe. And, I kind of think there's people who think it's someone else's problem, and there's people it's their problem, right? But it can hit anybody today. It can hit any family. I think anyone can be affected by it at this point. I mean, it's out of control.
What drug was he intending on using? What did he think he was using? Was it fentanyl or was it something else that had fentanyl in it?
Yeah, that's... I don't have clear specifics on it. Right now there's a criminal case for the person who allegedly sold them the drugs. I've got a civil case going against, his mother and the man who allegedly sold the drugs. And so because of the criminal case, I can't get all the details. I'm at such a disadvantage. I've been fighting for the last year and a half to find everything out. From what I was told, it's I believe it was Percocets they thought they were getting, and they got fentanyl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. And going into that side of it, it's Jake had gone through a bad spell, and he was working at a place in a factory, and had a car accident. Someone totaled out his car, lost his ride to work, wasn't able to keep making it there, lost his job, lost his apartment, ended up having to move in with his mother. And he didn't really want to. He knew there were problems there, but he didn't want to burden me either. So we moved Jake in. I helped him move all the stuff over there, and it was about 2 to 3 months before he passed away. And from what I'm told, basically through her words, through witnesses, and from what I've been told from prosecutors, she wanted pills for her back. Jake, she asked Jake to get them for him, and he had some connections. And from what I believe, she drove him out there. They secured it. A message I gotten from one of his friends, basically said, got some for her, and he kept a couple for himself. They drove back to her house. They took pills, and according to what she said to me at the funeral home, when I confronted her on the situation, she did one pill. But according to her, she didn't make him take his pill, which that really blew my mind. As a mother, you and a father, your job is to keep your child out of harm's way, not put them in it. And it's a part I struggle with, right? And part I really, really struggle with that. And, you know, as I go through this, right, and try to get my thoughts straight so I don't ramble on for you, but kind of give you kind of a timeline, you know, that happened. He passes away. I get my call from a sheriff. I'd just gotten home from a work trip, and I'd just taken a new job. And I get that call, and it's basically pretty straightforward. This Mike Whaley? Yeah, but you know, I saw a police department number on there, and said, "Well, we regret to inform you your son passed away last night." There's nothing in the world that prepares you for those words. You dream, or it's a nightmare, right? And everything crashes instantly. Everything crumbles, you know, all your hopes, all your dreams, everything you wanted to hope for, all the things you thought you'd do and see, and all your wishes and everything you wanted for your child. It's gone in an instant. It's one pill. It doesn't forgive. It doesn't, you know, second chances are rare with it. And, you know, I knew, you know, I went out there, and like my brother drove me out there, and I knew as soon as I got there, his mom probably had something to do with it. And it's pretty much all been confirmed to me, which, you know, as I said, you know, went through the process of how I believe it has all went down. And that leads me down, that's led me down another road, right? That you get, I want justice. And more than that, I want accountability, you know. Accountability, people to take responsibility. And I want them to own what they've done. And I'm fighting to get it. And it's a huge struggle. You know, most people don't realize this when you talk about court systems. There's a family court, there's a criminal court, and there's a civil court, right? And you know, unless you have to deal with it, you don't really get exposed to it. I'm fighting all three, and what I've come fighting to learn while I fight all three is, you know, in the system, it seems like there's no justice in your pain unless there's profit in it. You know, I pay my ex-wife maintenance, and you have to roll back 7, 8 years before that. I signed a shitty deal. I hired a bad lawyer. That lawyer's been disbarred since I took that deal, and I've come to find out from people close to that lawyer that, you know, she had a lot of problems of her own. And I took a bad deal, and I signed a non-modifiable agreement. I never imagined non-modifiable agreement meant what it means in the court of law, right? That lawyer told me, well, don't worry, if you ever get in a situation where you can't pay it, at some point, you know, you can always say you can't pay it and go back. That ain't the case. I took it to court because 4 months after Jake passed, I continued to work. I buried myself in my work, but I didn't perform to the level that they wanted, and I got let go. And I don't blame that company, and I'm not upset with them. I knew I wasn't performing to the level I did. I tried, worked really hard to make it work, but it just wasn't there. You're broken. No matter how hard you try to hide it, you're broken.
Yeah, especially with a son.
Yeah. He was my only boy and my only child.
Did you see signs of the drug problem before this?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Were you aware that he was using?
I knew again, it was mostly marijuana from what I know, and I don't know how much he was doing and when he was doing or what he was doing.
Hanging out with the wrong people is the big
problem. Yeah, you knew that, right? So, I mean, you see signs, but comes a point, again, I'd confront them, are you doing this? Are you doing that? And a lot of times it's lies and denial on it, right? But your gut's kind of telling you something's not right there. So there was some of that. That I was telling you that, I'm stuck in a non-modifiable agreement. And I took that and I took it to family court because I lost the job, and I said, I can't pay anymore. And I notified my ex-wife, said, hey, I'm out of money, I'm broke. That's it, I can't continue to pay. All I got was, I feel like it's a Goodfellas movie, Oh, restaurant caught on fire, fuck you, pay me. The business is bad, fuck you, pay me. You got hit by lightning, fuck you, pay me. Oh, your truck broke down, fuck you, pay me. You lost your job, fuck you, pay me. Lost your son to drug overdose, fuck you, pay me. That's what I got. So I go to court. I can't pay $10,000, $20,000 for a lawyer. I don't have money to pay my maintenance. So I go to court, and I avail myself to tell them, hey, I don't want to be in trouble here. I'm just saying that's what I got. And she ends up with a lawyer. I don't have a lawyer. I'm defending myself. And really, it just came out to an ironclad agreement, right? A lawyer gets up and it's Nichols versus Nichols. You can't change a non-modifiable agreement. And I tried to explain that it's not right that I'm paying someone who is either directly or indirectly involved with the death of my son. I've got like 8.5 years on this deal. Think about this. I mean, let this sink in. Every month, I write a check. And every month, I write a check, and I feel like I'm writing it to my son's killer. I relive that trauma every time I write one of those checks. I mean, if someone can try to imagine that feeling, it's devastating in itself. And then you go to the courts, and they don't hear you.
Explain what you mean by that. How do you feel like you're paying your son's killer?
I feel like if you, and this is part of it too, I'll explain it. February 12th, my son and my ex-wife, she drove him out to pick up the maintenance check. February 13th, that check cashed. February 14th, he was dead. My son didn't have any money in his bank account. The only person who had any money would have been her. So when I say, when you ask how do I feel like that, if you provided the funds, if you drove, if you came back and used, and you did them in your home with them, you're as responsible as the guy who sold them. And so when I look at trying to get justice from the alleged dealer, I think I should have it there too. And, you know, I pressed the state's attorneys, and because I couldn't understand how she wasn't charged with something. Basically, what I'm being told is that she's the main witness. She's the one they're going to use testify against that, the alleged dealer, because she was there. And so, yeah, so that's, to answer your question, that's how I feel like, you know, I'm paying someone who helped kill my son.
Do you find yourself playing out in your head all the what ifs and the roller coaster of anger to depression to all the emotions that come up from this?
I'm pretty good. I can't live in the what ifs. We all could have made a million choices that led us down a different path at any point in our life. I don't play the what ifs. I don't find myself doing the what ifs at all. You know, could have did this, could have did that, could have did this. No, anger comes at first. Anger comes from hurt. Then that subsides again, and then it's sadness and grief. So, you know, you go through those emotions. Depression, I'd be lying if I said I didn't get depressed over it, you know. But I'm also good at picking myself up. You know, the only tattoo that I have, and that tattoo on the bottom says "Arise from Despair." And those are the kind of things that you have to remind yourself. You have to get up. You have to get up. There's other people waiting for you. There's other people counting on you. And as bad as you want to stay in the past doesn't, you know, the future doesn't wait for anybody. So I always know I got to get up. I got to keep pressing forward. I've always been that way. I've always been someone who just pushes. I don't worry too much about how bad things are or what happens to me, because I know that I got to get up. I got to get up and fight, and I got to go again.
Do you have any regrets in your life about how Jacob was raised or anything like that? Or the friends you allowed him to hang out with or anything like that?
Well, yeah, you always have regrets, right? You get regrets about everything, you know. Got regrets about, you know, bad teams I bet on in football, you know. There's regrets in everything. But I don't think I dwell on it, because I know in my heart I did the best I could. I did what I knew I could do. I did what I thought I should do. And so I don't really dwell on that much.
And Mike, what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned in all of this?
Most important lesson I've learned in all this. Most important lesson I probably learned in this is you gotta love people. You really gotta appreciate the ones who love you. You gotta know who really is close in your life, and who to love back. Because we can misplace that love at times. We can love the wrong people. I mean, it happens all the time. People love people who are bad for us. Sure. I've got a small circle of friends that I love deeply. Deep. And they're there for me. And I make sure when I see them, and the family that I do have, I always tell them I love them. I always know say, I love you. I'm fortunate. I'm way fortunate than most people who've been in this spot and lost someone who loved them. My last words to my son were, I love you, as he walked out the door. And he said, I love you back. I'm so lucky. Because if I didn't have that, or if the situation would have been bad between us, I don't know if I could sit here today. I don't know if I would be sitting here today. I'm so lucky. And now I don't waste that chance. I tell people I love them. I hug them. I love them. And I've got one person to really thank for that. That's my wife, CJ. That woman has taught me compassionate love, and she taught me how to love my son. You know, I was never that, like, loving, hugging. You know, it seemed like we only hugged and when something was going wrong or something was bad, right? But those last years of his life, it was, I love you, and hugs all the time, because that's who she is. That's how she is. And she taught me that. And so again, all the things that I've been unfortunate in life, there's things I'm fortunate for, that have had good things just really happen for me too, Yeah.
All right, Mike, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thanks, Mark.
When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.